Jerry's World is brought to you by Less is More Events. Get Lime.
Welcome to Cherry's World. Cherry's World. This week we are going to talk about gentrification. Are you tired, my black and brown people, of Becky and Bob coming into your neighborhoods and controlling the comps? Well, we are going to talk to a man who is changing the narrative. He is buying back the block in Houston, Texas, in a neighborhood by the name of Fifth Ward. And not only is he buying back the block, but he's going to teach you how to buy back the block too. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Christopher Senegal.
This is Cherry's World.
Making Memories Sale Series. It's a sale that allows families and people in our communities in any city, state, or showtime to attend a series of events at a lower price than most, such as like the Trolls Live, Disney on Ice, the Universal Soul Circus, concerts, sports, and more. Contact Less is More Events at 202-930-3533. Again, that's 202-930-3533. Visit the website, getlimetickets.com. They're on social media, Facebook, IG, Twitter. Less is More Events. Get out and lime. Hey, if you're listening to Cherry's World Podcast on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, please give us a 5-star. Let us know what you think. Leave us a review. I want to hear from you. Thank you.
Would you like to advertise on Cherry's World and have your product placed on Cherry's social media for the world to see? Email us now at cherrysworldpodcast@gmail.com for low introductory rates. Cherry's World Podcast. Get heard.
Welcome to Cherry's World.
Thank you so much for being here. For me, this is important. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I used to have a restaurant in Houston.
Really?
I'm in love with Houston. I feel like
Okay.
Houston is my second home. And we have a lot of listeners in Houston.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
when I was looking at your page, I was really excited about this. Oh, he's got cute dimples too. I was really excited. My daddy has dimples.
Oh,
Dimples brings out. I was really excited about all the stuff that you have going on with the making our hood new.
yeah. Okay. Awesome. I mean, it's been a passion for a long time. So finally have it coming to fruition has been awesome.
Can you tell me how that passion started?
Yeah. So, okay. My background, I was like a typical like good kid, went to school, until high school. I had my son when I was actually 16, barely 16. So teenage dad, worked a lot, and then went to college on full academic scholarship. Got a civil engineering degree, got a good corporate job, and as soon as I hopped out of college and got into corporate America, I just felt like I was sold a dream. I was like, man, this is not what they tell you it's gonna be. It's like everybody says be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. I took engineer because it was the shortest path, right? Get out there, and it's just like, man, it's a lot of nepotism in the workplace. It's not really about how well you perform. You're just a pawn in the game, really. So for me, at that point, at 23, I decided I needed to focus on figuring something bigger and better out for life. And so real estate is what I kind of fell into because it just kept coming up over and over. It's like that's how a lot of first generation wealth is made, whether people are investors or they just own property in the right areas. And, over time, the value increases their net worth a lot. So that's what I did. I started flipping houses in 2008. And right at the last recession, ironically. So for me, this is like deja vu. It's a great time to get in and get deals. So I did that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I did that for like 5 years. And then about 2013, a lot of my friends or my coworkers were like, "How can I get in? What can I do?" And at this point, I'm knowing flipping houses is not what it's like on HGTV at all. So you lose a lot more money in a lot of deals. It takes a lot more time, a lot of property management. And, so for me, it kind of became frustrating. It's like, how can I have a bigger impact? What can I do? How can I include more people into it? And so, of course, we all know about the gentrification narrative about how our neighborhoods usually get converted over to other people's neighborhoods when we're not looking, for the most part, or they take advantage of people in our neighborhoods when they are in a position to control what's going on. I was kind of like, well, I know a lot of flippers that look like me. I know a lot of people that own a lot of rental property that look like me. I even know a few builders that look like me, but I haven't really seen any of them try to figure out how we can tackle what happens in our neighborhoods. Like, if we're all in real estate and we're all making money, why can we not figure out the solution to this problem? So it really became like a passion for me to try to figure it out. And so in 2013, I was actually able to do what's called creative financing, where I was able to buy a whole block of property with a grocery store and like 4 or 5 houses on it without using the bank. And what I did was I basically approached the owner, who actually inherited that property from his dad. And this guy was like 78, old Jewish guy in the historically Black neighborhood. His dad had owned like 26 blocks, and he acquired all of them like in the late 60s, early 70s, like after desegregation, when a lot of us left the neighborhood because we had the right to go live in other people's neighborhoods now. That's a side of our story that we don't really talk about too much. But that's when a lot of other people came in and bought up those neighborhoods. And the only people that were left there were the ones that couldn't afford to leave after desegregation. So they're all long-term tenants of these folks. And so for me, I was able to talk him into owner financing it to me. So I gave him 10% of the purchase price, which was crazy. I don't know where you live, but I was able to get a whole block of property for $450,000 here, and only coming out of pocket $45,000.
Yeah, you ain't doing that in California.
Yeah, I know. In certain markets, that's crazy numbers, but it's all about the regional location. And so, at that point I realized, wait a minute, so it's actually possible for us to use other means besides waiting to save up enough money to be able and have good enough credit to go to a bank and ask them, for permission, basically, to buy stuff in our neighborhoods. And so that's when I really buckled down on it. And I didn't know what I was going to do with the property at that time. I just knew I wanted to have some type of impact. At first, I tried to revive the grocery store. That just wasn't going to work. What I learned about that is, we always talk about food deserts, or areas in our communities where there are no retail, there is no grocery, there's no restaurants that cook healthy food. And the reason for that is not so much because of just a prejudice thing or something like that. It comes down to numbers. Like, restaurants have very low profit margins, grocery stores have even lower profit margins. And if there is not the income in that community to support those businesses will not survive. They'll close up shop and they'll leave.
That's why mine closed. It was off of Bissonnette.
Really?
Across the street from that Popeyes.
So oh yeah.
Make no money.
Yeah, and that's the part we miss. I mean, it's good to do things for charity, but if it's going to be your livelihood or your family's livelihood, it has to be profitable.
Yes.
So for me, what I did first was instead of spending a lot of money trying to fix the property up, I just did parolee housing. So I figured that was the first group I could help, because the people that have felonies, especially, it's very hard for them to find anywhere to live when they get out of prison. So I took only non-violent people. Most of them had been in prison for longer than 10 years. So I would just rent them out rooms, and they would pay $350 for the room, all bills paid. And part of their parole was they had to keep a job, they had to keep a place to live. So they were very low maintenance tenants, believe it or not. Like, most people would be scared to have them as tenants, but they were great. Matter of fact, most of them had trades. They were like carpenters, electricians, plumbers, all these trades.
So they can help you out.
So anything that happened on the property, I just drop off supplies and materials. They would fix it for free. They were just happy to have somewhere to live, somewhere stable.
That's awesome.
The parole office loved it. And eventually, like 2016, redevelopment started in Fifth Ward, and I saw that other developers that didn't look like the community were coming in, and they were building houses and they were selling them quickly, like without even having to list them on the internet as they were under construction. People were buying them. And so for me, it's like, okay, now it's my opportunity to take this to the next level. So I let my property manager actually take over my parolee program. I found her another property that had like 5 houses on it. And I did the same thing. I helped her owner finance it from that seller. And so she took over that program. And after that, I was able to start putting a plan together to do something with this block of property. And so for me, the first thing I was thinking about was, that a lot of people focus on low income housing. All that's really good. But what my focus was is, if I'm ever going to be in a position to show our community how to bring businesses back, I need to attract people that make good money back to the neighborhood, and people that look like me that make good money, get them back in the neighborhood. So,
well, let me tell you, me and Courtney was both snooping around on your website, right? Courtney hit me up and he was like, yo, I'm ready to get this dude $250.
yeah,
He's like, I need some answers. And he was asking me, and I was like, I don't know. But we gonna ask him on Friday when he get here.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you break it down, because your investments, they go like as low as $250, $550, $750, $1,500, $2,500. I'm throwing these numbers out there because a lot of Black people don't know that they can invest with something so low.
Right, and what's great is we can thank Barack Obama for that, because
there you go.
yeah, the Jobs Act was something he implemented, and under the part of the Jobs Act was a new tier of group investing that's called it's a tier 3 regulation. It's called regulation crowdfund, literally, where it took the same model that you would do for like a GoFundMe, but it allowed people to actually invest in real estate collectively, or any investment collectively. Before that, these things always happen, but they use big fancy word for it. They call it syndication. And so say somebody wants to buy an apartment complex, they can get 5 or 6 of their rich friends, and each one of those people have to be what they call an accredited investor. So you have to be worth $1 million, net worth of $1 million, or have made $200,000 for the past 2 years on your own to be considered accredited. And you are the only person that even has the opportunity to invest in those types of deals. Well, now there's a new tier where anybody can invest up to $10,000 of their own money into any project. So it opens up, everybody have the opportunity to be able to get in. And so I used that platform and that crowdfunding vehicle to fund my second project. So the first one was a new construction. That was the development. And that's been working. I've built 5 of them. I've got 5 young Black working professionals that work downtown that could have bought houses in the suburbs, but they understand the value of buying early in a neighborhood that's gentrifying, because there is a big mixed-use development coming, like 150 acres. I'm talking about like high-end hotels, restaurants, everything. Like that neighborhood is about to be completely gentrified. It's going to look completely different. I don't know if you remember City Center.
Yeah.
The same developer that built City Center is building a double the size in Fifth Ward, and it's less than a mile from where the project is.
Is it still going to be able to be called Fifth Ward?
Oh, they're gonna change the name. They're already calling it North Edo, East Downtown, but the north end of. So they when they start renaming stuff, that's when it's real.
Yes. Okay. So can you do me and Courtney a favor, and for everybody else in Houston who is listening, because I know y'all listening. Walk me through. If I give you $250, right? Because we can come up with $250. Everybody. Courtney asked me something about, was there a monthly fee? Like, what's the return of investment? How does that work?
Okay, so the crowdfund is specifically for the second project, which was me trying to find the solution to the second problem that we have with gentrification. It's how do we protect the long-term tenants, because they're renters, they don't actually own their property, right? And so for me, what I realized is, wait a minute, a lot of these communities have landlords that own a bunch of real estate. Just like I bought this entire block from this guy, there's other landlords that own rental properties that are still occupied. And so I was able to find, through one of my students who I teach how to wholesale, which is that they find tired landlords and people that are losing their properties, and we negotiate purchase agreements with them. So we were able to find a landlord couple that were in their 70s and ready to retire, and I was able to talk them into seller financing another whole block. To me, it's 18 houses and 2 commercial buildings. One of the commercial buildings has a restaurant in it. Other side used to be a barbershop. We're going to convert that to a coffee shop. But that 18 houses are all occupied, and the property is already bringing in like $12,000 a month as is without touching it. So I'm like, okay, this is a solid investment. And so I had been trying to figure out a way to answer that initial question that everybody was asking me, is how can I participate? And no matter what income level you're at, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a babysitter, whether you're a doctor, whatever, if you want to get your feet wet in real estate without taking the risk on of owning your own property, this is a good way for you to do it. I mean, you are actually going to be partnering with an experienced investor, and putting your money into something that is a solid investment, because it's really close to this 150-acre mixed-use development. I'm talking about like 3/4 of a mile away, like 6-8 blocks away. And it's got cash flow already, so it's already bringing in revenue. And so a lot of people that don't really understand real estate will make bad decisions on buying the wrong house, right? So the house may look nice, but and it may be in a good area, but the mortgage payment may be really close to how much you can rent it for, so you're making no profit. Or vice versa, they'll buy a house and not be able to get a tenant in it, or all kind of different things. Buy a house that needs a lot more work than they thought. So this is a safe way to get into real estate and understand it. So for $250, so I'm sorry. So let me break down the whole project. So I bought the property for $1.25 million from the sellers. The way I structured it with them is no bank involved again, but I had to give them 50% at closing. So $600,000 was paid at closing. And then I told them what I want to do. They're an older Black couple. I told them I want to make this a model for how we can collectively buy properties in our neighborhoods, protect long-term tenants, and make it a group investment. And so when they heard that, they bought in. So they were like, Chris, if you give us half at closing, we'll give you 2 years to pay us off. But the great part is, in those 2 years, I don't make any mortgage payments. So for 2 years, I get to take all that $12,000 a month. The first couple of months, I've reinvested in making the property nicer for the tenants. The next few months, I'll take that money and I'll be fixing up the commercial side to get businesses back in the vacant spaces on the commercial side, which is going to, of course, create more entrepreneurs, create more jobs in the community, and create a new point of destination for the people locally and the surrounding area, because there is no breakfast spot in Fifth Ward. There is no internet cafe in Fifth Ward. So we're going to be bringing all that right there on site. And so what the investors that come on with me get to do is they get to buy a little micro ownership share of this project. So basically the same thing they do with a company. When a company goes public, or whatever they call it, the initial public offering, they just take the business as a whole, the value of the business, and they break it up into little bitty shares, and then people buy shares. So that's exactly what I'm doing with this, taking that crowdfund model and selling shares of ownership. So it's not like a GoFundMe or something where you're putting money together to give to somebody. You are actually investing alongside me in the project and owning a very small portion of it. But there's a direct correlation between your investment and the value of the property. So if the value of the property goes up 10%, your share value goes up 10%, right? So I cannot oversell things, so I'm always trying to be very conservative. But in the area around City Center, the other project that you know about, the property values literally tripled over there after City Center was built, because that was the Mexican low-income neighborhood, Spring Branch. There's very low income up there. So this is Fifth Ward. I'm saying conservatively, even if the property value only goes up 40 or 50%, that means your $250 investment is now worth $400 or more in a few years.
So is the plan now, is it initially $250? Is there a monthly fee?
There is no fee, because it's an investment. You're literally just investing money with me into the project. and the project is basically paying for itself because it already has cash flow. So there's no need to take any extra funds out of that.
So is this going to be something where like 5 years from now you turn around, if it turns into like City Center where you sell it and then everybody gets their shares out of it? What is the long-term plan?
Great question. Okay, so the income that comes along with it is I'm taking 40% of the net rent, which means after all the bills are paid at the end of the year, I'm taking 40%. I'm taking 40% of whatever's left, which is profit at the end of the year, and I'm dividing that up amongst all of the shareholders. So every shareholder is going to get a small check off of that. So that's like a dividend, the same thing you get with a stock. And that usually is going to be about 3 to 5%. And to correlate that to a rental property, if you own a house worth $100,000 and you're making, say, $300 a month in profit between the mortgage payment and the rent, that means in a year you've made $3,600 off of a $100,000 investment. So that's 3.6% interest. So with your dividend, you're going to get that same 3%, but on a micro level because you didn't buy a whole house. So it's like you're getting the same exact benefits and returns as owning rental property. On top of that, just like that rental house, if it's in a neighborhood where the value goes up, then your investment value goes up. So the share values will go up. And then once a year, after the campaign closes, I'm going to get the property appraised, and I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to evaluate whether they want to stay in the investment or they want to sell. So if you want to stay in it, then you'll know what your new share value is. You'll know that your investment has increased in what it's worth. Or if you want to sell, you can cash in. So if you bought the shares are $250 for the minimum investment, if they've gone up 10%, you can sell now at $275 and take a 10% profit and walk away. And then anybody else that missed the first round of investing can then invest, because after this first round closes, they'll only have an opportunity once a year to do that, and it'll be a small time window. So that's pretty much how it works. And I don't ever plan on getting rid of this portfolio of properties. This is a long-term play, but everybody will have the opportunity to buy more shares once a year or sell their shares and move on to something else if they want to.
I've been taking notes. I don't want you to think I was like not paying you attention. I've been taking notes of everything you've been saying. So I'm going to go back to what you said. So you say you started investing in 2008, right?
2008,
Did you get not caught up in it? I don't know how, I'm not politically correct, but did you take advantage of or get caught up in, or however you want to look at it, the reverse mortgage scheme that was going on in 2008? I don't know.
No, you know what? I was not a part of that. I know a lot of people that did get literally caught up in it. When they were not verifying any documents and people were forging their information to get big loans against property. Yeah, so they basically what they were doing is they would take any house as long as you had decent credit, and they would have an appraiser inflate the value of the house more than what it really was worth, and then they would take it to the bank. And then the bank would give them a loan against that inflated fake value of the property. And then the bank would give them a loan because the bank liked the fact that they were loaning out more money because they're getting more interest, right? And they're getting they're getting more fees on the front end for originating all of these loans. And so people were pocketing all that money, and it got to the point to where
that sounds dumb.
It was dumb, and that's why a few people that were smart and savvy in banking got really rich during that crash, because they knew when everybody's talking about the junk mortgages, that's what they were referring to, because it gets pretty deep. So the bank would loan them the money, and then the bank knew it was high risk, so the bank didn't want to keep that mortgage on their books for 30 years. They're like, this person's probably going to default next year, 2 years, foreclose, whatever. So what we're going to take all of our mortgages, and we're going to go to these big investment banks like Lehman Brothers, and we're going to tell them, hey, we got 100 mortgages right now. It's bringing in, let's say it's bringing in $80,000 a year in just interest payments. It's going to be higher than that, really. But the total investment for them could be millions, basically, but it's high risk. And so they sold all that stuff to Lehman Brothers now. So the bank has washed their hands of it. Now these investment banks like Lehman Brothers own all that stuff. And then guess what starts happening? people start defaulting. So that's what really triggered the whole mortgage crisis.
Yeah. Do you believe in using your own money or using other people's money, as far as banks and?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would not have been able to do the things I did right now if I waited till I had saved up enough money or if I had done enough with my own deals to do it. So leveraging other people's money is definitely the way to go. But I mean, you can't do it if you don't know what you're doing, because you are gambling with somebody else's money. I mean, anybody that lends you money wants to know three things. They want to know: am I gonna get my money back? How long is it gonna take me to get my money back? And how much am I gonna make off of my money being with you? So, as long as you can answer those three questions and you can show them that you have a credible track record, then yeah, I would say definitely find people that have money sitting on the sideline, don't know what to do with it, and then use it to your benefit. And I always tell people too, like, success in anything and not just real estate, it requires three components. One is you got to have the knowledge, one is you got to have the opportunity, and one is you got to have the money. You don't have to have all three. Mm-hmm. So if you can go out and find a house and it looks like it's going to be a good deal, but you don't have the knowledge or the money, you can go find the contractor, you can go find the investor that'll, charge you a fee to be your mentor, to walk you through the deal. And then once you have that knowledge person, either a contractor or that investment mentor, then you can go to somebody who's got the money and they'll say, okay, it's not just you. You got somebody on your team that knows what they're doing and you've got a good deal. And it's a lot easier for you to get other people's money that way.
I was going to follow. I got a follow up to the follow up. I was listening to you and Cherry talk about the restaurants and how it suffers, and so a lot of people, smart people, believe in taking other people's money instead of spending their own. So I got a two-part question. The question I have is, when you had brought in, I'm not politically correct. You brought in not criminals, but the people that just got out of jail. You housed them.
Parolees.
You had parolees. Did the government give you money for that? And the second part is, as far as you and Cherry, when y'all had the restaurants, I found this. I'm not politically correct, but the Arabs in our neighborhood. I'm from Chicago.
Yeah,
the Arabs.
Yeah.
This is what they do, right? So they get the Section 8 money. They get the link cards, right? So they this guy, he owns a seafood restaurant, right? So what he does is he says, we take link. We're like, how you take link for crab and stuff like that? So he sells the food cold,
raw,
but he charges you to cook it. So basically he swipes the link card to get the money and he just charges you $2 or $3 to cook it. So I'm like, it's actually kind of smart because you're using somebody else's money and their guys are making a whole bunch of money. Whereas a lot of people, they default because they can't keep up, but I was like, that's smart. That's taking advantage of the system. So that's my two-part question. Did you get any money from the state for taking in parolees? And what do you think about, with the restaurants?
Yeah, so Texas doesn't have like a formal, or the corrections doesn't have a formal program here to fund the parolees. Some of them would be able to get like assistance from like the Salvation Army for short-term housing plans, but for the most part, they had to keep jobs, and so it was really hard for them to get jobs too. So once they had a job and they had a place to stay, I didn't have any issues with any of them at all.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I've heard of other areas where it's more like, if the halfway houses are full and they have to find somewhere in the community to place those people, then sometimes the state will cover the housing for those guys. But I wasn't a part of that program. But what you're talking about, down here they call it "you buy, we fry," basically.
Oh, okay.
And the Arabs and the Asians do a lot of that in the low income neighborhoods. But what's so ironic about that is, I have a young lady that came by the commercial space in the project that I'm doing about to renovate, and she wants to do fresh food in a juice bar. And so I was actually explaining that model to her. I was like, you come into these neighborhoods, a lot of people won't be able to buy a $7 smoothie.
Right.
They don't fix income. I was like, but if you can figure out where you can sell them fresh fruit, they can use their cars for that, and then you blend it afterwards, then that's a way probably for you to be able to survive in a neighborhood like this, because she really wanted to come to a low income neighborhood and provide them healthy food options.
And they would. The projects behind us used to come and ask me, like, could they buy a tomato?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't sell a tomato. They were like, can we buy lettuce? Because it was a food desert.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could get there. And I started just giving stuff away. And then I realized I can't keep giving y'all my,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they could go make dinner, but they send their kids in. Tell my mama said, can I buy a tomato?
Mm-hmm.
No, baby, take the tomato. Like, how do you tell a little kid they can't have a tomato?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, and that model works. But it works better if you have like the assembly line, the cafeteria style line, where they can get the raw stuff.
Yes.
But when you have sit down restaurants, you can't really do that.
Right.
No, not at all.
But that's
I
what
was
you
like,
had though, Cherry, right? You had the
it was a
cafeteria.
soul food spot.
Yeah.
Was it
It was a
cafeteria
straight,
style or?
no, it was a restaurant.
Oh,
Sit down
okay.
for your food.
That's why we closed. We ain't make no money. I was feeding kids and giving away tomatoes and
Wow.
It's a tough business. People don't realize that. I think we gravitate towards what we hear everybody else talking about as far as good businesses to start with, right? So it's either you're gonna sell some clothes, you're gonna have like be a beautician or a salon, or you're gonna have a restaurant. Those are the low hanging fruit that we hear about over and over. But most restaurants you're lucky if you have a 10% profit margin consistently.
especially the first year. But I'm not a good restaurant owner, and I thought that I was going to come in and give low price meals for people.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you realize that sometimes when I have that hot dog $1 day, that's the only meal that those kids are going to get that day.
Yeah.
So when you start to see these same kids over and over again coming in to get their hot dog, you end up sliding them some chicken and some macaroni and cheese. And some you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do? You feed them.
It's tough.
I'm not a good business owner.
Yeah. I mean, it becomes a charitable organization at that point, you know.
Yes.
So it turns into a passion project. Basically, it's no longer like a profitable business.
Yeah, I couldn't afford to feed the whole neighborhood.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and that's why it's important for us to bring the higher income people back, you know, because if they're there, then there can be neighborhood organizations that pitch in to help feed the kids in the neighborhood, you know. In the gentrified neighborhoods, all the people that look in don't look like us, so they don't care about the poor people in the neighborhood. But if we actually start repopulating our historically Black neighborhoods with the people with the high incomes, it's a lot easier for us to facilitate taking care of that group, you know. So I have a nonprofit that I started, and the focus of that nonprofit is specifically to take people that are on their first conviction for selling drugs, and teaching them that what they are learning is actually how to run a business. They just have an illegal product, right?
Right.
In our neighborhoods, that's the only capitalism that we're really exposed to. That's the only real business where you got to learn, okay, I got to find a source of a high quality product. I got to figure out how I'm going to differentiate myself from everybody else. I got to figure out how I'm going to take over a market share, AKA my corner.
Right.
I got to figure out how I'm going to retain clients, how I'm going to get clients first, which is marketing.
Right.
How I'm going to retain clients after that, how I'm going to get my bulk product and break it down to the retail level, sell to individual. That's supply chain. Oh, that's a business.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you're going, because that's where I was going. Because see, I see a lot of restaurants in the local neighborhoods and stuff like that. And you hear these stories about, like you said, restaurants, they have a hard, you know, you might make a 10% profit or whatever like that. The underground market, they can afford to take the risk of not, whereas a normal business owner who just took a loan out, they can't take that risk. I think a lot of like a car washes and all this stuff is being funded by
it's washing money.
Exactly.
A lot of them do, and it's not nothing that we have. Like, it's no need to take it out because that's every community. Like the biggest mobs and mafias weren't Black people; they were Italians and and Russians and stuff like that in the big cities. So yeah, that's what they were doing. Right. But yeah, that's the only way they could clean. They could clean that money. They have to go through businesses that are cash heavy and just keep flooding that with currency, with real dollars, and making it like it's transactions. And so yeah, a business that's only making 8 to 10% profit, a year. Even if you're a restaurant bringing in $1 million a year, but you're making 8% profit, that's $80,000. That's a one household type of income.
Right.
And some of those are trying to feed 2 or 3 households, So yeah, they of course they're gonna go take the illegal money. Somebody's gonna come offer them an extra $100,000 just to flush some money through there.
Yeah, let's stay off of that. I don't think we need to go there.
Yeah.
Let me ask. I want to stay on. Yeah, I know, but I know you didn't think you were going to be coming on here talking about washing money.
No,
and stuff.
but no. I mean, it's a really a part of it because I mean that's part of my passion too for the neighborhood because it's like that's all we're exposed to and we feel like that's the only way of life. But by educating and exposing people to the other alternatives that we have that other communities already replicate and do, it can help us get out of that mindset. That's how we have to move to survive. So.
I just don't want to come across as I'm saying that every local hair salon, every local barbershop is funded by drug money. Most of them are, but not. I don't want to come across as saying all of them are.
I would say from especially in Houston, it's probably 20 or 30% where like they've been staying open a long time and there's no foot traffic going in, nobody supporting that business. There's something else that's supplying the electricity bill,
Yeah, we probably stay away from that. Sorry, Cherry. I didn't mean
No, it's okay. I have a question because I got people actually texting me right now. I've been talking about you all week. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, I love it.
I reached out to people in Houston and was like, yo, this is going to be a show that you really need to listen to. One of my friends just hit me up and he asked me, because I told him that you're on right now. I was like, I'm talking to him right now. I don't have the answers yet to tell you. Yeah. He was like, how long is this investment opportunity available? And I said, probably till he reaches his cap, but I don't know what that is.
Well, actually, so as of today, the campaign closes in like 27 days from now. Ooh. So I've been running it since November.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have a little over about 570 people who've invested so far. And collectively, we've raised about $355,000, which is pretty cool to say. You got people putting as little as $250, and we're able to, move the neighborhood or move the culture that much forward by showing how we can buy a whole block just by people putting money in.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It really is. So you put $250 in. This year, you might get back $15 at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. It ain't gonna be nothing big, but next year you might get back $35.
Right, and you imagine if you sit $250 in the bank account and a savings account for a year, you may get what 20 cents.
Yeah, you're not gonna get anything.
Yeah, you won't get much of anything. So it's way better than that. And the goal is for everybody to be able to invest in future projects too. So you put $250 in this first one, you see how it goes. I'm having another project next year. You can invest more in that. And eventually it accumulates into something substantial. It's no different than buying like a little bit of stock every month or something like that.
What do you see happening to the real estate market within the next 6 months?
Here in Houston, okay, yeah, let me start off by saying every area of the nation is completely different. And other areas that don't have economically sustainable drivers, meaning things that can withstand this corona crisis, there's going to be a whole lot of homes that will get foreclosed on in the areas where the people no longer have employment. And that's going to be on both sides. It's going to be the people that actually own homes and won't be able to pay their mortgages even after this forbearance period is up, where they don't have to pay mortgages. By the end of this year, those people will get foreclosed on by the banks. The other group is going to be the investors that own a lot of rental property in areas where their tenants don't have employment anymore. They'll be able to hold on for so long, but then they won't be able to afford them either. So they'll be either selling them or letting the bank take those too. But for a market like Houston, we are pretty unique because our sources of employment are diverse. So we have, of course, like the medical center is a huge employer here, and of course, though that industry is booming right now, unfortunately, because of all the stuff that's going on. So those people are making a lot more money, and they're risking a lot, but they're making a lot of money right now. And so that area of housing is good here. On the contrary, oil prices are really low right now. So a lot of the guys that work in the oil sector are hurting. So I predict Houston to be kind of flat because there will be some fall off from the oil and gas stuff, which will put a bunch of foreclosures out there. But there's also going to be more housing demand as the medical industry continues to grow. And the oil thing is cyclical. You know that we don't know how long it's going to last, but there's every 10 or 12 years, there's one of these cycles where the oil prices drop. So that industry will come back.
I wanted to go get buckets, boy, and just
I wish we could.
Yeah, put them in the freezer.
I follow you now, and I see a lot of people who I know follow you, and they're not. They're part of the woke Black society. And you said something that really got me going. You said this is what's brought in by Obama. What was that act again? You said
the Jobs Act.
The Jobs Act. Okay. And how do you feel when you hear Black people or people in general say, Obama didn't do nothing for us?
Well, all right. I'll say this: he was the first, and you can't imagine. You can't expect the first to be the bull in the china shop. People said the same thing about Jackie Robinson. If you studied like baseball, he was the first African American player. But he came in, he played his role. He made the other group feel comfortable enough to say, okay, we can bring more players in that look like you, the way you perform. I think if anything, that was what he was there for, more than anything. If he would have tried to do too much, Congress probably would have shut him down.
They did.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like they can't expect miracles, So I mean that's pretty much all.
And what do you think specifically people? And I know this is not what you do, but what do you think specifically people wanted? Like when they say Obama didn't do nothing, you just gave the Jobs Act. I mean, you telling me that's huge. Healthcare is huge. So I'm like, what else do you?
Everybody's talking about Trump giving out stimulus. They forgot Obama gave out stimulus at the very beginning of his election too. Come on, because Bush had messed everything up. So yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they expect. I think our culture, we're waiting for a savior instead of everybody trying to figure out how we can all collectively work together.
There you go.
And they, everybody just thought that Barack Obama was going to be the windfall for everybody. I don't know.
Courtney and I earlier, this is not about real estate, but we were talking about the young man who was just killed in Georgia. And we were talking about how could we all come together and kind of demand the open racism to stop. When it comes to things like you're doing, reinvesting in our own neighborhoods, how can we pull more Black people together? Or how can we let more Black people know about things like you're doing? Black people can afford $250. They buy in Jordans. So they don't know that they could buy real estate. How do we get more of our brothers and sisters to come together and do the same kind of thing, kind of buy up these neighborhoods?
I think for me, I spent years just debating with people all the time and just like talking about my vision of what I knew we could do collectively as a community. And that never worked because as intellectual of a conversation that I can have, somebody on the other side of the argument, if they're just as intellectual as me, their argument sounds just as strong or stronger. And so since what we're used to experiencing fits the other side of the argument, it's really hard for me to ever get anybody on board. So what I focused on now is having a proof of concept. We like stories. We like things that are tangible that we can actually see. Oh, it actually works. So I feel like now that I have a workable model, word of mouth and more opportunities like this, just to speak on your platform and talk about it. This is how we kind of get it grassroots, that this is what's possible. I wish there was a faster way to do it, but I really don't see anything else working. And word of mouth, is the most efficient way to market or advertise anything. So hopefully we get some bigger people with bigger platforms on board, and then they can talk about these projects more, and we can get more exposure to it. But for me, it's just about starting with the core group and showing some success, and then having that success, resonate in the community.
You also said, I'm sorry, Courtney, you said that you went to school for engineering. What kind of engineering? Because there's different sectors.
Yeah, so civil engineering. So civil engineering is basically everything having to do with civil life, from like roads to bridges to structural type things, highways, designing the traffic
system. So you stayed in your field. Now it's just neighborhoods.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I mean, I don't sign off on any plans or anything. Like I'm not a licensed engineer anymore, but yeah, it definitely correlated. It had its benefits. So mhm.
That was my question. I know there's a lot of kids out there that are wondering, what am I going to do with my life?
Yes,
How old
yes.
is your son now?
My son is 20. He'll be
Oh, okay.
21. He'll be 21 this year.
Yeah.
He's on actually in college on full scholarship, going for entrepreneurship and finance.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations. How did this whole quarantine affect him right now?
Well, so he's a sophomore at University of Houston, and he was working on campus as well. But they're basically all just working from home. He has a house that he got with two of his friends from high school. So they're working from home and doing remote courses on the computer. So I think they're probably enjoying it a little bit more.
That's awesome. I have a cousin who had a son at Temple University, and they literally gave him like 3 or 4 days to come get everything out of the dorms.
Oh yeah,
Told him
wow, yeah. Well,
they'll
thankfully he doesn't stay on campus, so that was good. That was good.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
What advice? We're running out of time, but what advice would you give that young college student who wants to be a homeowner one day, who might want to invest in property, who might be interested in real estate? What would you tell them?
I would tell them number one, get a book. This book called Rich Dad Poor Dad it was a game changing book for me. Get that book and read it early. As a matter of fact, I made my son read it when he was 13, because it really helps you understand money more. Like we don't really understand that money is really a tool that, if used correctly, can start creating income for you without you having to work for it. Or it's not about how many degrees you have, or how many hours a day you work. You can make decisions, and these decisions will make money for you. And so once you understand that concept, it's a lot easier for you to realize how to manage your money, even if you don't have a lot of it. And the quicker you learn how to manage your money, the quicker you can learn how to make your money grow faster, which can help you buy that house that you want, or help you pick which investments to put your money in. I would also say, don't rush to buy a house, and don't just buy any house. Don't believe the hype that home ownership automatically means you made it, or home ownership automatically means that you're going to be worth a whole lot of money later. Because if that's the case, there would be no foreclosures, right? So there's foreclosures. People make bad decisions. Think life happens. So, make sure that you are putting the right people around you to help you make those good decisions. And as a home, if you're going to buy a home, the biggest advice I always give everybody is get a real estate agent that understands the market where you are, especially as a buyer. Because as a buyer, the real estate agent costs you zero, because the seller pays for both agents at the end of the transaction. The seller gives his agent 6% of the sales price usually, and then that agent has to split that with the agent that brings the buyer. So it's free. So there's no excuse for you not to do it. Don't try to buy a house on your own. People, there's a sense of pride, or a sense of obligation to put everything in both parties' names. But like you said, if one person is strong enough on their own to carry that, you should probably take that route, because it does prevent you from both being in a really bad situation. Say somebody loses their job, or something else happens where the income changes. Then you always have the other person's credit to lean on, or you can even take the other person's credit to go get lines of credit, or to be able to get another mortgage loan to buy another house if you feel like you're about to lose this one. There's so many benefits to keeping a little bit of that separated. I think that I call it social engineering sometimes. The kind of things that we're told the way things should be, and we don't really challenge them or question them. When if you really sit down and think about it, a lot of things don't have to go that way, and that's definitely one of them.
And your name, so you can have one person's name on the mortgage, but another person's name. How's it work again? We did
On
it.
the loan?
Yeah, one person's name on the loan, and then another
On
person
the deed.
on the deed.
Yeah. So the deed is separate. So you can add several people to the deed, but the person whose name the loan is in, they're the guarantor for the loan. So if anything happens to the house, the bank is going after that person. Yeah, so you definitely get, and you can also put companies at having ownership in the house too. I think you can deed the house over to a company. So there's several ways to do that. Yeah, and overbuying too. Like don't buy just because the mortgage lender tells you that he's going to approve you for that much. That's capping out what they say that they believe you can afford monthly. So try to live comfortably below that somewhere. Live a little bit further out. What I've seen white people do, of course, like they'll live below their means on purpose, but they'll do it in an area where they know the property values are going up, and they'll basically do what's called trade up. So you buy, so you could buy a house where, say you were approved for 250,000, but you decide to go buy a house for 150, but it's in a neighborhood where in 2 or 3 years that house will be worth 200. Right. So now in 3 years, when you sell that house, you're getting a check for $50,000 at closing that you can use to go use as a down payment on the next house. Right. And you do that 2 or 3 times. Now you've got extra $200,000 in equity just from buying below your means in areas where the values are going up and just repeating the process. You do that enough times, you can write a check for your dream house cash in 20 years.
Yeah, they do. And they put down bigger down payments than we
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest misconceptions that we have in our community. A lot of people make that mistake. They get their house, but they get in a house, in a city or community where the value is going down instead of going up, and they end up house not worth nothing. So.
Yeah, and that's a whole sermon right there. And that's what I'm preaching right now for my project in Fifth Ward, is because this area is gentrifying. Like the neighborhoods that we call the hood, when you start seeing Becky walking her dog, it ain't the hood no more. Everything just hasn't changed yet. And the time to buy is when you see Becky walking her dog, but it still looks kind of bad because the value is going to increase greatly over the next few years as all that gets cleaned up.
Can we use that as a quote? Can we use that as a quote from you? When Becky is walking her dog, that's when you buy.
That's when you buy.
Okay, cool.
That's when you buy.
It's gonna make a nice meme for the Instagram.
Yeah.
The same thing is happening in South Central right now. Yeah. We knew that it was happening when they started getting Starbucks. We were like, Starbucks is coming to the hood. Something is going on.
Right. They know
it's true. That is definitely true.
That is so crazy. Is there anything else, Mr. Senegal, that you want us to know?
Wow. I want us to know that collectively we can do things far greater than what we're exposed to right now. So there was a movie that just came out called The Banker, and the storyline of The Banker was two brothers went into a white bank and kind of figured out how to buy the banks and work behind the scenes and take that money and invest it or lend it to people in our community. And eventually it caught up to them and they got shut down. But I wish they would have told a story about the former slaves who actually started banks and had thriving banks like in the late 1800s and early 1900s, because that's a story that's more powerful to us. It's not about us figuring out how to be sneaky and go into somebody else's institution. What about the people who were actually slaves and they were able to build banking systems? Like if we knew those types of stories more, we would not feel like we are victims all the time and that we're not capable of doing anything, because we really are. We've done it before, and we can do it again.
It's great that you mentioned a Black-owned bank, because there is a Black-owned bank in Houston. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Right. Have you ever dealt with them when it came to home loans or business loans or anything like that? I just want to know like what the process is like at a Black-owned bank versus.
So I haven't had any personal loans with them, but I do know people that do have loans. Yeah, they're great to work with. I mean, it's a small community bank. They're heavily invested in especially the Third Ward area, which is where they're headquartered at. And so it's great to support local banks, because I mean you get the same perks as you do from going to a big bank. You keep the dollars in the community, and that's what we need more of. Like also the storyline of redlining, everybody knows about that, right? Where the government decided to start backing loans through Fannie Mae and all those programs, but they decided which areas they wanted to do it in, and it was the areas that we didn't live in for the most part. So that gave other people an advantage where they can get more loans. But what we don't talk about is, had we been supporting our own banks, we didn't need that system. Our own banks could have been lending to us that whole time. But we took a lot of our money out of our banks and put it in those banks after desegregation. So there's a lot of things that we could have helped ourselves that we didn't, and we need to learn those lessons and be able to move forward.
That's what's up right there. I like that.
All right.
$250. I can't let go of that $250. Like, I go in a grocery store, you spend $250.
Right.
HEB done got my $250 a lot of times. Ralph's done got my $250 a lot of times.
Right. All the time.
Next time I go to spend $250, I'm gonna call my homeboy Chris and be like, "Hey,
I got something to do with that money."
Yeah.
Sorry for having you talking about money laundering and stuff. I was trying to get to a bigger point, but somehow I get lost in thought.
So
man, it's all good, healthy conversation.
Yeah. You can edit that out. Like, he edits me out all the time.
I know Chris was probably thinking like, "Hey man, I come over here to talk about that."
No, it's all good, man. It's all good.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. We really appreciate you.
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Next project, come back. Let us know.
Welcome to Cherry's World.
Brought to you by Less is More Events. Get Lime.